to the degree that you want something is the degree you're afraid of not having.
Yeah.
God, I wish I started when I was younger. I go, well, yeah, but you didn't. So shut the fuck up and let's
Right.
keep going.
Right.
Like, you can't.
Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Because it's not till then that it's really real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is way worse than I thought. It's like, oh yeah, it's way, way worse than you thought.
Yeah.
But luckily, there's more to you than you think.
My man,
How's it going, bro?
it's going really good. So I love to start these with a little music. Get
Yeah.
started, set the vibe, set the tone.
All right.
So
All right.
let's do it.
Everything is harder when you're not alone but feeling lonely. You can prophesy, but it ain't gonna save. No sympathy is found around because you walk a different ground. You found magic between your bassinet and grave. Covered in the thick of it, it's in the back and front, and everything conspiring to happen all at once. It's alright now, everything is happening alright now, and I'm alright right now, alright now. The path of least resistance is a suit that doesn't fit. Well, it's a trap to you, a shackle and a chain. And as you grind away your gears, your moments that turn into years will make a bed where you will feel no pain. While everyone makes sideline calls, it's you who stands and builds it all. But I alone will answer to it all. But as for now, it's alright now, everything is happening alright now, and I'm alright right now, alright now. Covered in the thick of it, it's in the back and front, and everything conspiring to happen all at once. While everyone makes sideline calls, it's you who stands and builds it all. But I alone will answer to it all, and as for now, it's alright now, everything is happening alright now, conspiring, inspiring to be right now, and I'm alright right now, alright now.
Hell yeah. Wow, man. That's It's so interesting because, when we were doing Hape earlier, we did a little Hape ritual. And for those of you who don't know listening to the podcast, Hape is a traditional Mesoamerican, South American tradition of ground up and dried tobacco leaves mixed with some herbs and admixtures. And you actually blow them up your nose through a tool called a caripe, which is like a big loop. And you blow it in your nose. You don't breathe in or snort or inhale, so it doesn't get in your lungs, but it stays in your sinus cavities, and it really kind of brings the tobacco like into your head and down into your body. It's a very clearing ritual, very powerful ritual that I've adopted. But anyways, I was saying some words which were very much words that you say to yourself in a little prayer.
Weird.
Yeah, yeah. And then the interesting thing is that song, which you chose, I just said, hey man, play whatever comes through. That was like exactly the song that I needed to hear right now.
Look at us all locked up.
I know,
dude.
right? Like that's the beautiful thing when you like get in resonance, and because things get chaotic, and particularly with that song, it's like when things are chaotic and you're standing in the center of what feels like a storm, and you're wondering, can I keep going? And then that message, like, everything's going to be all right. Everything's all right now, like just as it is. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, bro.
Yeah, it's like the double entendre, right? It's all right now, but it's all right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like even in the thick of it, like it's exactly as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, always.
And that reminder is so important. Like we have these judgments about what should or shouldn't be, but that's all just our nonsense. Like the truth. There's a deeper truth of, this is it.
Yeah, I think there's a nature. My big thing recently is if I'm trying to be a better person, better parent, better partner, better artist, that the universe will conspire with me, not against me. So that even when the hard shit is all happening and it's all chaotic and stuff like this, it becomes a lot easier to be like, but I'm not doing anything wrong. So this is probably part of some grander plan.
Right.
So it makes it easier to surrender rather than fight it. So I've been, with all of this time off, that's been like my hugest thing is like, there's not really any shit storms. They're just like teacher storms.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
That's, if I was going to go back and give myself a superpower, like my superpower would be faith, like faith that it's exactly as it should be. And honestly, I have only evidence to say that that's actually exactly as it has been. But in the moment to moment, from my teens all the way now to me being 40, if I could have just had more faith the whole way, man, the journey would have been sweeter.
Yeah.
It's just my experience in the moment doing the same things. Maybe nothing would have changed. It didn't need to change. It was all just as it should be anyways. But if I could have just believed that, woo, that would have changed my life.
Yeah, man. I think the nature of it, though, of the human experience is, especially when you're driven, right? I'm a very driven person. You're a very driven person. Is there's always okay, well, this is good, so this is in order. Now I can look at what's next.
Yeah.
And then if that goes this way, then this will be next. And so you're always thinking of these pivots and what's next and what's next. And I spent a lot of time early in my career never present. I got to go on tour with some of my favorite artists of all time. And I look back on it and I spent the whole damn time thinking about what was next rather than just being in the amazing experience that it was, No more,
no more.
No more. I won't do it anymore. No matter how fast or slow this thing that I'm doing grows, I'm fucking here for it now, man.
Yeah.
And I needed the great pause that we just went through. And I think what helped was me examining all the parts of me that weren't an artist, right? Just being a parent, just being a partner, just being a martial artist, and getting to do all this shit that wasn't music for a while, to just be like, oh man, I really am this multifaceted creature, and I'm on a lot of journeys at one time, and it's all happening right now, and I just need to be here in it and not there in it,
Yeah.
Whatever's next is fucking coming.
Yeah, totally.
It's coming.
I recently read Jordan Peterson's new book. I had him on the podcast, and one thing that we never got to explore because we were going all over talking about a bunch of stuff, but he writes a lot of his books talking about the difference between order and chaos. And for him, that's the split. That's polarity. There's order and then there's chaos. And the living right is trying to set order to the chaos. And I think that's correct. And I think it's good advice to like apply yourself as a force of order to the chaos and go explore it and know that the dragon of chaos itself, the mystery, the unknown, when you go face the dragon, that's when you get the gold of whatever the dragon is holding and whatever is there. But there's another perspective, a divine perspective, which says, actually, there is no chaos. Like the chaos is the necessary part of order. It's all orchestrated by a higher order that's beyond our purview. So even when everything looks like this is not what should be happening, this is a fucking disaster and everything is crazy, like there's a divine part of us that's looking down going like, actually, it's perfect. Just wait, you'll see, you know?
Well, I think anyone that you talk to, you know, we don't learn shit when it's good. You know, we're cozy and comfy and like, it's when the shit goes bad that we have to take notes and be like, okay, well, how can I avoid that? Because that kind of sucks. So we go through these things that suck so we can come out of it with the like a little more knowledge to know how to insert order into the chaos. Right. I'm a big Jordan Peterson fan. I haven't read his new book yet, but 12 Rules was a pretty pivotal book.
And
for
this
me.
book is absolutely phenomenal too. You know, expanding on some certain things, delving into some other areas, and it's a great concept. And it's, I think, there's those main archetypes: king, warrior, magician, lover, and I think it's a good way to orient yourself towards like, okay, how am I living in the highest articulation of each of these archetypes? But then there's the fifth archetype of the mystic. And the mystic is really the one who's just is able to see from that highest perspective. And I just really like the idea that from the mystic's eyes, everything is perfect. You know, like when you really see it from the highest purview, from God's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, it's all perfect. It's all, and then that's the collapse of duality. That's the collapse of judgment and saying like, but we can't live in that. We're in a body and we're in polarity and we're in this world that does have actually in most all dimensions, chaos and order. But just to kind of remember like just a little thin line of remembering, which is that faith through the mystic's eyes, like it's all perfect. Actually, this is right now, you got to deal with some shit and deal with it. Don't bypass it and pretend that you're the mystic. A big lesson from ayahuasca was it's great to be like Jesus if you're Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, don't pretend that you are. Like, don't say like, I'm going to turn the other cheek. I have no anger when I'm smited by the world or, you know, like this is all good. You're full of shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's not real. It's fine. Great. Aspire to that. Maybe every once in a while you can touch it. And when you're really there, be there, but don't just try to be like that because you think that's what you should be. Be it if you are it and do the work to try and get there, but don't pretend.
Yeah, I think where it gets tricky is like we're talking about like you were just saying is, you know, for me, one thing that I always struggled with is I was all in on one facet, you know, so I was all in on being an artist and my relationship with my family would suffer. And then I went all in on being a martial artist. So art relationships would suffer. And it wasn't until this break for me that I was like, oh shit, man, I can be all of these things and I can give my whole heart to all of them. But there's like the middle of the Venn diagram. And I think that's the mystic, right? Mm-hmm. That says like, no, man, it's all love. It's all of these things. Mm-hmm. So there is no like, it's not like a mixing board where you just turn the volume up on one thing. It's like, no, let's get a nice, perfect mix and blend of all of these things. I think that comes with age too.
Yeah, absolutely. It should. It can also not. Like people can get stuck just moving the treble up until they can't hear the mid-range anymore and they can't hear the bass anymore and it's just all noise and it gets fixed. It almost calcifies in those levels. But if you maintain with that amateur learner student mentality, which is the only way you ever become a master in the first place, then everything's flexible and you're always kind of moving the dials just to see like, hey, what's it like if I move this around a little bit? How does it sound? Yeah. And having that experimenting concept.
Well, I think too, it's a lot of picking things that don't have an end goal, right? Like fitness, what's the end goal? Well, that it'll be this thing forever that I do to maintain my body. Jiu-jitsu is like, everyone says the same thing. I got my black belt and then I started over. You know, there's no end goal to it. It's like the end goal is to keep getting better. And I think when people pursue, like you're saying, So I'm going to climb the fucking ladder of this company. I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to acquire the money. And I think society has shown us time and time again that fame, celebrity, money isn't it. If it was, these people wouldn't be as sad as they are sometimes that we see. You know, we see suicide and all these things. So I think we have this great outline of, or I do anyway, looking at the world of like, I'm only interested in things with no end goal. There's no end goal to being an artist. It's to keep making art. There's no end goal to martial arts, but to keep getting better. There's no end goal to fitness other than keeping my shit running right, you know? As opposed to like, no, man, I want a Grammy. And then it's like, well, then you get the Grammy and you're like, well, fuck. Is the game over now or what, you know?
I spent the day yesterday with Dr. Andrew Huberman, the top neuroscientist at Stanford, who's got his own lab and he's been on a lot of shows, and amazing guy. And really one of the things that, because he breaks it down to like what's actually happening in the brain and the reward systems. And so dopamine is, it's the driving, motivating force. People talk about it as the pleasure chemical, and it has some aspects of that, but it's really like the driving, motivating chemical, that thing that we're chasing, the thing that actually propels us to chase, and the thing that we chase after, right? So it's kind of like this irresistible lure, what in some ways that mercurial element that we're always looking for. And we can get it in a variety of different ways, but one of the most reliable ways is if we feel that we're doing a good job. Like if we feel like we're doing a good job. Now, that's subjective. It's up to us to decide whether we feel we're doing a good job. So it's dangerous, and he talks about this. It's dangerous when we say we're doing a good job if I get a Grammy.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then you get the Grammy, and then it's like, oh, fuck. Like you have that moment of like where you get the dopamine you've been chasing, but then you have to figure out another one, and you have this kind of loss. And my mom was an athlete. She talked about like after winning a big tournament, there's a letdown, and a lot of other athletes after the championship, there's this letdown. Like, fuck, I'm a champion. Like, what do I do now? A writer, Stephen Pressfield talks about how he doesn't actually finish a book before starting the next one because he knows that if he gets to that point and that's his goal, he's devoting himself to the process. So this is a long way of saying that if we retrain ourselves to say, I'm doing a good job by just doing, not by being on the path rather than by getting this goal, then we're going to continually be driving ourselves by the right reward system and neurochemically driving ourselves by the right reward system. So you're doing a good job every time you step on the mat.
Yep.
Good job, man. You're here today.
You're here, yeah.
You're here today. Oh, look, you're practicing your guitar. Good job, man. Oh, you opened that document of that course you're writing or that book. Good job, man. Here you go.
Yeah.
And then you're rewarding yourself that way. And that's what's actually going to fuel you. We think that we need this goal of this external thing, but really we just need to give ourselves that encouragement, that fuel that's going to drive us all the way.
Yeah, I think that's what's so special at the time that we're living in, is in the era of, especially of podcasts, because it creates this long form conversation where it's not like these interview tidbits where I have an agenda to pull one thing from you. Okay, Cody Garbrandt, okay, you won the title. What's next, dude?
Yeah.
So there's these long form conversations where vulnerability happens. So it's kind of pulling the veil off of shit because you hear someone say, yeah, man, I got the title, and right away was like, well, fuck, man.
Right.
What now? I mean, okay, so I got it. So the illusion that we previously had of people like, oh man, look at him, he's fucking winning. He's just like, he's at the top of the game of whatever that may be. I think the way that like vulnerability is becoming cool, which it never has been, like rugged false stoicism has always kind of been the thing. And we're seeing this rise of people being like, nah, man, so here's what it's really like over here.
And not only, I think rugged false stoicism is an intermediary, slightly positive, articulation of what happens. A lot of times it's a plastic perfectionism.
Yeah.
That's what's actually we're most used to. Like when you see the big celebrities and they're getting at, that's like this plastic perfectionism of like, oh yeah, they don't even go into it was hard, but this is what I live for and I move through it and everything's good. That's like one step closer to at least acknowledging that some shit was hard and you're working through it.
Yep.
But then the final step is sometimes saying like, yeah, it was just fucking hard and it almost broke me. And eventually I got back to that stoicism place, but allow people to sit in the fact that it's not instant for everybody. We're not all perfect Marcus Aurelius, and even Marcus Aurelius wasn't always Marcus Aurelius. I mean, he probably didn't write about it all that often, but I guarantee there were some days where he was like, man, everything's just fucked. All these people are trying to kill me. And my wife is sleeping with somebody conspiring against me because she thinks I'm dead. And like, this is bad. This is all bad.
Well, it's funny. All the great Stoics, I've been diving deeper into the samurai. And I always thought I had an understanding of that culture. I did not, man. It was always very much a like, okay, this girl is my wife, but is she going to fucking kill me when I'm sleeping?
I know. Are you watching that show on Netflix? Yeah, dude.
Fucking wild, right?
Whoa.
And seeing like, okay, so 100+ years of this civil war, and then everything finally gets unified and calmed down, and then he's like, we got to give him a war. Let's go to Korea. You know, like everybody's like, our whole culture is built on this warrior thing, but we're not kicking the shit out of each other. We need to start a fight.
Right.
So it's interesting seeing, because right, this like, there's no way that these crazy stoic shogun general samurais weren't also having these moments of like, I hope my brother doesn't fucking kill me, man.
Yeah,
you know,
totally,
like I hope my brother doesn't fucking kill me. I hope he's not with my wife right now, like trying to work some shit out. Yeah. So I think
like, hey, sweetie, good to see you. Is that poison?
Yeah. What's in that sake?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's this like, I'm a pretty rigid guy, and I'm very much working on trying to soften myself. Because I've always taken great pride in that when shit's hitting the fan, to kind of be like, it's fine. I will handle it. Everybody calm down. I got it. But the people that are closest to me know that's not who I really am. You know, I'm the one that's like, fuck that motherfucker, man. Get his ass on the phone. You know, I'm like losing my shit. So I'm like always trying to balance this thing between like Nipsey Hussle and Ram Dass of like, you know, like what hat am I wearing today? And I'm trying to go more to the Ram Dass side of just like, because if we believe that everything's all right, then overreaction shouldn't typically be there.
Yeah.
If we're really settled into the belief that like, no, man, this is a wave. This is here to teach me. It's going to suck, but let's go for it. There shouldn't be a lot of shouting and yelling, you know?
No. But also importantly, if we're attached to us being more like Ram Dass, and that becomes part of our identity, if we start saying, I am more like Ram Dass, then the moment we feel like Nipsey Hussle, the moment we feel like fucking some angry shogun and we're just out for blood, you know, then we start judging that aspect and repressing that aspect and then saying like, what is wrong with me? And then that just accelerates it. That's gasoline on that same fire. I had a mini version of that last night. I got my ass handed to me in pool. I didn't even want to play. It was like 2 a.m. You know, we just had a nice dinner. We were going. I was about ready to go to bed. And my father-in-law is like, come on, let's go play some pool, you know? And he's a good pool player. And we've had this like, we're going to get after it. You know, I've known that. And I was like, no, I got to go to bed. He's like, come on, just a couple games. You know, I was like, okay, fine. And then I just got my ass whooped by my brother-in-law, my father-in-law. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bed, guys. And I just sat in bed and I was just like stewing. As I got my ass kicked for one, I'm also tired, and I was like, "What's wrong with your boundaries, bro? Like, why didn't you do this?" And I'm just like, it was just a weird thing because I was judging myself for how I was judging myself. So it was this cycle of like judgment and then meta judgment. You know, the first judgment was losing, which is a silly thing to do. You know, I lost, like, fine, just take it on the chin. And then normally sometimes I can, but then my fatigue. But then it was the judgment of my judging of myself that was actually really the thing. You know, that was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? This is stupid. Like, come on, man. And then it just goes on in this like endless cycle. And then to unwind it, you release the judgment of the judgment. And then you can laugh at the initial judgment, which is like, okay, man, you're just mad because you got your ass kicked.
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah. And like I was telling you, man, I do the same thing all the time. Like someone will get my goat on the mat. And I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? And then I'm laying in bed and I'm like, man, if I had done this, I want to go, should I text him? Should I text him and tell him like, you didn't really get me? I got me, you know? And it's funny, man, my wife has this sixth sense. Like we can be cuddling. She's facing that, like she can't see my face. And she'll be like, where'd you just go? I'm like, nowhere. She's like, nah, dog, I felt that. You know, I felt you leave.
That's such a gift though, by the way.
Oh yeah.
That's such a gift.
When someone knows you're thinking about thinking, you know?
Yeah. That's really important. I remember, you know, in my past relationship history, like there was one partner in particular, didn't last long, but because there was a lot of things that were out of alignment, but she was a master at that. She would know the moment, like we'd be out at having dinner and then having some drinks somewhere. And she'd notice that moment where I had that first thought of like, yeah, I'm kind of over this. I didn't say anything. Thought that thing was a completely internal process, imperceptible to the world. And she'd be like, hey, you feeling over this? And I'd be like, yes. How did you know? You see me.
Yeah.
I feel seen.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
That's the best feeling in the world, man. Yeah, I'm really blessed. My wife is a special creature, man. She's a psychotherapist that specializes in trauma, and I'm a human being that specializes in experienced trauma. So
what a match.
Yeah. So match made in heaven or something. But yeah, our connection like that is so deep, and we're coming up on 11 years of being together. And there's, like you're saying, there's a huge power in feeling seen and understood. And another thing from this great fucking pause was I've always had this deep desire to be understood by people that don't even know me, especially as an artist. Like, someone will be like, oh man, I'd like see a fucking thread on Facebook, like this song is about this and this. And I'm like, no. And then I really realized that like, I don't care anymore. If my wife knows who I am, my good friend and manager knows who I am, the people in my band know who I am, and the people I train with know who I am. That's good enough for me, man. That's a nice chunk of humans to have understand you. Yeah.
That's your ohana. That's your chosen family. And when you're known in that way, I mean, imagine the horror of feeling lonely because nobody sees you. And that's the really challenging part, because in so many relationships, there's this wall of resentment and mistruth. They're just, people are going through the motions and not expressing the things. Maybe they'll express a few things to their boys, or she'll express a few things to her girls, but they're not really talking. So the partnership doesn't have that level of intimacy, and then in the friendships, it's a lot of still some posturing, like, yeah, everything's all right. It's kind of shitty at work, but whatever, let's get a drink, and you never really actually let the guard down. And then in the quiet, dark moments, there's just that deep sense of loneliness.
I couldn't imagine, man. I just couldn't imagine.
It's the worst thing. It's why it's the number one predictor of early mortality. It's just not even having, and there's studies about the difference of having that one single person, at least one, who can really see you and like really know you. That changes everything, just having that one. And then you expand that, it becomes exponentially a force multiplier.
Yeah, well, it's weird because different circles, kind of have different requirements, I guess, prerequisites to like be in that circle, right? So when you're talking about those shallow friend groups, I just can suss that shit out so quick, where I like, I don't sound like a judgmental prick, but I can like hang out with someone and be like, yeah, man, we're probably not gonna be tight. You know what I mean?
Totally, man. Totally. And vice versa. I'm getting quicker at being like, yep.
Like, and I feel like people, and then on the adverse of that, I'm sure dudes like that probably see me and are like, that dude's fucking weird. I'm like, well, that's totally all right, bro. I know a lot of other weirdos, so I'm good, Yeah, I think it's so important. Because I have that in my relationship, but I have like my bro Will that owns the Grindhouse, the gym that I train at, to have someone who is routinely kicking the shit out of me, also be a very close friend. And dude, we talk about everything. And he's just like, dude, he's a fucking survivalist and dad. And he's just like the most manly Montana man ever. But he's also like super sweet and deep. And I just am so attracted to that in people. Like we're saying, people that can be all of the things. And as I'm getting older, I just don't have time for the fake shit. I want to be around people that are pushing me and pulling me and stretching my understanding of like, that will step in and be like, hey man, you're doing really good, but is that your best? Or is there more in you? Because I see more in you. And if I see more in you, that's because there's more in you. Another thing that's been huge for me that was always so taboo for dudes to talk about is therapy. Holy shit, man. Like getting into therapy and just having someone that if you're like, fuck this is hard, I'm out, is like, okay. If you want to stay, I could help you though. and just having this third party thing, especially when you come from like abuse and trauma and some of the shit that I've experienced, like I always in my head was like, well, I'm a successful artist, so I've made it past my story. That's it, I won. And then really purposely diving deep into like, yeah, dude, but why are these other parts of your personality still here? And having someone help me map that back to like, oh shit, that's not me, that's my dad. This shit's not even mine. I'm not carrying that shit anymore, and having someone really help me map that again isn't a close friend or that isn't emotionally attached to me. That's just like sitting here, like looking at a brain graph with me pretty much, being like, here's the map, bro. And the amount of aha moments that I've had where I'm like, oh shit, okay, take that out of the backpack. We don't need that anymore. Yeah. But like actually working through something rather than just being like, no, I'm past that, has been so huge for me.
Seems like the magic combination has been shown in the clinical studies that are currently out. It's some kind of access to a medicine that's going to give you a transcendent experience, right?
Yep.
So psychedelics or entheogens like MDMA, psilocybin, whatever your thing is, and those really compassionate, caring, intelligent people that can talk you through that. Now, in the studies and everything, which not a lot of people have access, they do it simultaneously. And that's what we're getting these results. 3 sessions of MDMA, curing PTSD, treatment-resistant PTSD for 2 out of 3 people, and then curing depression and anxiety in a single mediated psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy and ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. So that feels like the combination, but in the absence of that, having your transcendent experiences and having someone to talk to, still going to be pretty good. Like you're still accessing both things. And I think both of those are important because talking alone may not be enough, because you may not be able to feel safe enough to get really into the deep parts to reprogram what you're experiencing, but you might have the intelligence to do it. But with the intelligence of how to look at things and then the ability to go deeper into that experience with the medicines, that seems to be, and I'm not recommending this to everybody. It's not Aubrey prescribing like how to heal to everybody. It's a very personal choice, but based on the research and based on my own personal experience and talking to people who have both, that's where you see the fastest acceleration of growth.
Well, yeah, I want to pick your brain on something while I'm here.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a sole believer of that because I've seen that plant medicine work, and that's my wife's goal. She's a psychotherapist and she wants to do psychedelic assisted therapy. So we're never not talking about it. And I had an experience. I struggled with alcohol and drug addiction forever, from like 16 on, and I did the rehab thing and the AA thing and nothing worked. And I took a super large dose of psilocybin by myself. It was the worst night of my life. But something happened at the tail end of it where I was like, oh man, I'm just fucking exchanging Band-Aids every day. I'm not actually being like, okay, what can we put on this wound to like start the healing process? I've just never had the compulsion to drink since. It might pop up in my head momentarily. I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. But it gave me something that no offered program has. And after sharing that story, the amount of people that are like, dude, me too. That's how I did it too. And I've become friends with a guy named Dell that runs a program called Unlimited Sciences, and they're the people that are gathering data with Johns Hopkins and presenting this to the government saying, nice, look at all of this fucking data.
Yep.
Depression, PTSD, addiction, all of that. But I have been offered to sit in ayahuasca ceremony many, many times, but there's always been like one little thing where I was like, that feels fucking off, man. This isn't it. Like I've paid a deposit before and been a week out and been like, nah, man, I'm not going to do it. But I recently got invited to one and it's perfect. Like everything is perfect. And just since being in Texas, the synchronicities that have lined up with people that I've met that like, hey, I'll be there. And I'm actually friends with this person, and this person. Like it's happened every single day since I've been in Texas. Wow. I've met someone that's like, hey man, I'm going to be there. And I'm actually friends with your good friend who's friends with him. And I'm like, so it feels really perfect, but I'm really scared isn't the right word. Scared like you would be if you were going to fight somebody.
Right.
So what's your experience with that? Just that fear of like, for me, it's because my friend Peter put it really well to me when I told him I'm scared. He goes, well, yeah, dude, because, it's not fun and games anymore. You're doing work. Like,
Trabajo, as my first shaman said, which is Spanish for work. Trabajo.
Yeah.
The ceremony starts the moment you say yes. So what you're in now is the ceremony. So that's a very important thing to recognize, is that a lot of people think, yeah, it's going to start as soon as I drink the medicine. Not the psyche knows. And somehow, whether it's because we're connected to the collective unconscious, whether the spirit of ayahuasca itself depends on your worldview and your metaphysical understanding of how things end, or the spirit of ayahuasca is actually when you say yes, it's like, okay, because it definitely feels like a sentient being. It's like, okay, here you are. Now we're going to start you on your path. So I think the first key thing to recognize is that you're in ceremony already. It's starting to work already. So whatever that trepidation is, whatever that anticipation is, that's a sign that there's something there, because that's what you feel. There's something for you to confront. And this is your psyche knowing that there's something that you're going to confront. So one, you can just surrender and it'll be what it'll be, and you'll make it there. And you can also get curious, like, I wonder what it is that ayahuasca might show me. That's is scary.
For me.
Scary.
I'm an overthinker, man. I think about thinking.
Right. So, it's what are the unexplored nooks and crannies? Where is there still some more to process? Where is there some more to look at? And sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's like, damn, I didn't see that coming at all. I thought I was totally good with my dad's stuff, or I thought everything was in right alignment with this situation. And, but maybe it's not, and so many times I've been like, really? Still? Still this? And I'm like right in the throes of it and confronting it. And I just feel those pangs in my stomach. And I'm like, oh man, I've been through this 100 times and there's still more there. And ayahuasca or whatever medicine is like, yep, still more there. And like, okay, here it is. But it's starting to work, and your psyche knows that it's working. So it's a good sign. If you didn't feel anything like that, you're either, unconscious to what there is to do, like what you have to do, and you're just kind of blocking it out. Or you're just brazenly overconfident. Like even, I was talking to one of the shamans that I know very well, Hamilton Souther, and he was talking about, he has, he's a maestro, so he can do ayahuasca on his own and feel comfortable with that. And he had some, he's in Peru and there's been lockdown, so he hasn't been serving. And he's like, he has some in his fridge. And he's like, man, every day I go by that fridge and I take a look at it and I take a deep breath and go, whew. And he's done thousands, but he knows through his experience, there's always more. There's always a deeper level. So what you're experiencing is absolutely what everybody should experience. And if you don't experience that, if you're about to do ayahuasca and you're like, yay, it's going to be fun, cool visions, you're in for
well, that's what's so interesting, right? I used the Grateful Dead and Hunter S. Thompson as my moral compass for a good chunk of my life. So I found myself, my experience with psychedelics was always fun and games. It was, there was no work being done. It was, it's like Merry Pranksters vibe of like, how weird can we make this? Like how goofy can we get? And I think the consciousness aspect of it was, at that time in my life, I was like, this trauma isn't a thing. Everyone has weird childhoods. Off we go, I wasn't trying to look at anything. But then that maturity sets in. Then you have kids and you have a wife and all of this shit sets in where you're like, well, if I'm going to be the best version of myself, I really got to tend to the garden here. And when you're doing that it's forced labor almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not
totally.
like a quick prune and then back in for lemonade. It's like, it's fucking serious
business. You may go
business.
into the garden and the roots may grab you by the ankles and wrap around your neck and pull you into the dirt until you're choking on nothing but nematode worms.
Yep.
And then at that point it might say, okay, now back to the sunlight. You got to know, you're in a magical garden.
Yep.
And the plants can just take you and grab you and pull you into the earth, or catapult you into the stars. It's a wild place.
But like we were saying, to the parallels between the two of you learn better from hard shit in your life than you do good shit. And for me, like I said, my last bad trip cured my alcoholism. it was the worst. I mean, I can't say the worst night of my life because the outcome was fabulous, but it was a fucking nightmare. And you and I talked about this when you were on my podcast, and you're like, fuck, man, I wish I would have been there to be like, hey, man, in 3 hours, we'll be in the kitchen.
Yeah, totally.
Because it was like, I did it. I'm gone. I'm not going back. And now I'm stuck in between this weird, like, dark spirit world. And I'm just like in this thing now. And I don't know what time is. And I'm fucked. And now what? You know, I had no one there to help. So there's this comforting thing of knowing, you know, there's people on hand to be like, hey,
that's
man.
the thing. That's the one thing that you most likely will not ever encounter in a properly run ayahuasca ceremony, because the shamans put out so much confidence, and you know exactly what the brew is, and there's other people there, and there's a cadence to the ceremony. It can happen in like a weird, sometimes you can get like a reactivation after the ceremony where you think you're through, but the ayahuasca moves through your digestive tract, and if you haven't purged, it can like reach a new, you know, fresh area of your intestines, and then you could absorb more DMT, and then you could have like a second ride, and that happens to people. That's where it gets scary, because then you're like, oh shit, everybody's out of this, but I'm back in it, and now what's the problem? So just be mindful that that's normal too.
Yeah. But
during the whole ceremony arc, you feel so held and guided by the maestro, maestra, whoever it is, that shouldn't happen. So, but the risk of that particular thing happening, which is this is wrong, something's
too far,
wrong,
and I'm not coming back.
That can only happen afterwards. So, but if that does, again, it's just an opportunity to surrender. That too will pass. That's just understanding the physiology, that's just a fresh patch of intestine that the ayahuasca just reached, and it was undigested, and it just absorbed. Yeah. And so there you go on another ride. That's never happened to me, but I know that can happen. But that particular fear should be mitigated. And that's the importance of having a guide. That's the importance of having somebody there with experience to be like, hey, this is normal. Like, you're good. Because then you can focus on the actual work, not the meta work, not worried about the work that you're doing. You're actually into the work itself.
Right.
And that's really important. That said, you can still, even when you have that awareness, it's still a treacherous territory. Like, the dragon still has teeth, and the dragon still has fire. And sometimes people get scorched. Even experienced people get scorched, and it takes them a while to recover from the dragon fire. My brother Kyle has just gone through an experience where he got scorched, you know, and he's one of the most experienced psychonauts I've ever known. He got scorched, and he's still on the pathway of harvesting the lessons and the gems from that terrifying encounter with the dragon. So it's also important to remember that this is an encounter with that chaos element, but there's also that wisdom of eventually it's never going to be chaos. Just like you looking back on that terrible night, it's like, oh, that was perfect.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's not.
No, you know? And far from it. Yeah.
And that moment can stretch for that one single night, or it can stretch for a month, or it can stretch for a while. But typically there's that wisdom, especially if you do things with discretion and you're guided. I love the fact that you said no to ayahuasca a bunch of times. Like,
I did.
That's super important.
4 or 5, yeah.
That's super important. That's like a great sign that you're actually listening.
Yeah, well, so what's hard for me, man, you know, I live in Southwest rural Montana, and, you know, I hang out with a lot of dudes, cool dudes.
Yeah.
But Montana cats are just built a little different.
Yeah.
So when someone has like a fake name and, like, you know, there's just a vibe there where shit's a little weird that I'm like, I don't know, man, because I would hate to be in the middle and be like, can y'all get the fuck away from me, man? Like, your name is not Nissan Jaguar. Like, you know, everybody here is full of shit. Just leave me alone. So the thing that's so special about this is the people that are there, I really relate to. Lots of jiu-jitsu guys, lots of seekers, but like manly seekers. And I really need that, that energy around me when I'm doing that kind of work, because I'm like, all right, cool. So we're all dads. We're all built here. You know, I mean, we're all built similar. So I feel good about doing this work surrounded by people that I can relate to, rather than like, it's a bunch of strangers. I don't fucking know anyone here. That container is really important for me, you know? So yeah, it's weird. You know, I find that just like going out into the real world sometimes is like, trying not to judge everybody based on my circle. And I'm trying to stop saying like, well, that guy's weird or that thing's weird, and just say things are different. Like, oh, well, that's a different, it's a different strut. It's a bit different than me.
I think it's super important, and it's super important that you're talking about, already you're breaking those paradigms. Like the music that you're able to transmit, you know, because it's incredibly conscious, beautiful music, but you're a fucking rugged dude, you know, and like it's real and it's authentically coming across. So people who can both know you and then listen to your music, they're going to be like, wow, I'm really listening now because I connect with this guy. And the same thing with, you know, somebody who's taking medicine, like they really connect with it. Like if somebody like, let's say Donald Cerrone,
Yep.
if he was going to do ayahuasca, like you would be the right person to come up to him and be like, hey, Donald, like I did this thing, man. And like, you should come with me next time.
Yeah.
And if Nissan Jaguar said that to him, he's like, fuck
Get
off.
the fuck out of here, bro.
And just go and sip his Budweiser and, you know.
Yeah.
But like, if you said that, he would look at you and be like, man, I see a lot of myself in this dude.
Right.
All right, man. Like, what are we talking about here? And then they would think about it. And like, I'm able to serve that in a certain way to some people because obviously I have a lot of multifaceted expressions, and I think that's important as a bridge. But you're, you know, a different variation of this archetype of a man, and so your ability to bridge out to other people, that's a gift because we need to see it in all facets. Because some people, they don't want to listen to me or you; they want to listen to Nissan Jaguar.
Yeah,
yeah.
Some people might need that fella.
Oh, Nissan Jaguar, thank you so much. You know, like I need to go with you, and Nissan's like, hell yes, come with me. Sister.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I'm like, what's your real name, bro? Before we even get started, I'm gonna need to call you. Can we go with Richard? You know. Yeah, but, you know, but and what's so funny, you know, the reason this time off has been so crucial for me is what's really weird about being an artist, and we just kind of started doing well, you know, selling out smaller venues, which to me, shit, that was always the dream. Like, well, we sold fucking 300 tickets tonight. I'm cool, you know, and what we've seen is that our fan base is very into it. You know, they know every word. They're in. And that's really special. But when you're touring all of the time, you're always being, I'll just speak in the first person because I'm talking about myself. I'm always being related to by songs and by my art. So that's how people are relating to me. A lot of shit that I wrote 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was this lost kid that was writing this music to encourage myself to move on to the next phase. And I'm always being related to by this art, which was starting to get tricky for me. Because I was like, yeah, dude, but, you know, I also fucking fight all the time. And I also, you know, work on a ranch for fun. And I also, like, I do all of this other shit. And so that time off was really good for me to have a break from that, where I was only surrounded by people that don't relate to me in that way at all. Like, when I'm home, the most I'll get out of my boys, how's tour? It was cool, man. Where'd you train? That's it, you know?
Yeah.
So being surrounded by people that are relating to me, not on my art at all, has just given me this great recharge. And then coming out to play shows again, I'm more just fucking invigorated than ever. I'm more vulnerable than ever. I'm so excited to just, especially with this new record, how it's a pedal steel and fiddle and just sounds like fucking Montana. And I'm just so excited and ready to be like, hey, this is who I am now. I'll keep playing these other songs because I love them, because you love them. But like, here's who I'm at. Here's where I'm at now. Here's who I am. And I just have to, if I'm going to keep doing it, I have to just be real from here on out.
Yeah.
I can't pander. I can't meet people where I think they need to be met. I just have to be like, boom, spear in the ground. This is where I'm at right fucking now. I don't know where we're going next, but I hope you come.
Yeah.
You know?
That's it, man. Yeah. It's, I never really thought about it that way, but, you know, thinking about like another friend I have who's a musician is Mike Posner. And he had that huge hit song, I Took a Pill in Ibiza.
Yeah.
Like that was a chapter in his life. That was a long ass time ago. But if people are like, play I Took a Pill in Ibiza, you know, I'm sure he still does sometimes because it's a song, but like he's not that guy anymore. And it's got to be like interesting because we're always evolving in such, you know, just dramatic ways that we're a vastly different person than
especially
we were.
at the age that we are. Like I feel like that fucking 30 to 40, that's the like 20 to 30 is like, okay, I'm dabbling in manhood, but I'm still kind of a kid. And I feel like that 30 to 40 is like hyperdrive of like, all right, I'm fucking setting up my systems for go, you know, and figuring out how to continue to grow and all that. And what makes the old shit special to me is like, I did this thing with Justin Wren yesterday. He had reached out to me on Instagram and shared this just phenomenal story with me about how my song I Am touched him and the work that it's done in his life and the work that it's done in people that he's passed it to. Something special happens to that song. It's not mine anymore.
Yep.
It's like the analogy I gave yesterday. It's like this painting that I get to show everyone and they get to take a picture of it and take it home, but I keep the painting. And there's this magic with music is once it's out, it's just living this life of its own and people are interpreting however they're interpreting, using it however they're using it. And that makes me love these old songs and love to play them. I'm not like, well, I'm not that kid anymore, so fuck these songs. They're evolving with me. And I was getting to a place where I was like, fuck, man, I'd really like to not have to play I Am every show. And now I get just as excited to play it as the people that are to hear it, because I'm like, I know that everyone that's at that show probably has a story related to this song. That song is probably how they found me in the first place. So I'm like moving to this place of like, fuck, I'm honored. I'm touched that these songs are like living their own lives. Some shit I wrote in a notebook when I was 23 is now like.
Because that's perfect for somebody else in their own journey. And that seems like therein now we've taken the whole hero's journey of the mastery of the artist. The same prayer that we had before this podcast. May we empty ourselves and be a vessel to deliver words and songs and messages to whoever needs it in the best way possible. And if people there are going to resonate with that, and that's going to impact their life in the best way and fill their cups up in the most way, then you surrender to that. And then there's the joy in the surrendering to that. And just like if someone needs to hear about taking that pill that they shouldn't have taken, Mike can sing that same song and they're like, totally. Oh man, I felt the same way. Like I dropped that acid that time and fuck, I really didn't want to. It really fucked me up. You know? And they just feel like, okay, like so the medicine continues to serve. And that's the beauty of being an artist.
Yeah, well, it's weird, and I know you have to experience this all of the time, right? Is that when you're kind of publicly out there, especially with your podcast, you're so open, and you're never having shallow conversations. So what happens is people start to feel like they know you, So I'm sure that's a really weird thing, because I know it is for me, where people come up and they're like, okay, well, I've had these songs with me daily for years now, so I pretty much know who you are. I'm like, nah, you don't. And for you, it's got to be even different because you're just always saying what you mean.
Yeah.
For
me, it actually feels like they really do know me.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's one-sided. I meet a new member of the Fit for Service Fellowship. We go and have our gatherings, and they come up, and I'm talking to them. And they're like, "Wow, it's wild to hear your voice. I've listened to 100 of your podcasts. I feel like I really know you." And I'm like, you do really know me.
Actually, you've listened to me talk for hours
and what's interesting is like somebody who does that actually knows me better than some of my casual friends who don't listen to my podcast, right? Because unless we're dropping into, this is a very special thing. These are very deep, intimate conversations that last a while. It requires patience. There's not a big group. But if it's a friend that doesn't listen to my show and I see them out for dinners, it's like a friend of a friend type of situation, more acquaintance, and we don't have big drop-ins like personally, they don't know me as well as a casual fan actually knows me. Like they'll come up and like, I know you, like I know what you went through during this period. I know that. Whereas somebody else may not know me at all. Even family members who don't listen to my show. Yeah. Like they've known me since I was, little, but they don't know me like someone and that's, I think, the beauty of living, radically vulnerably is that it is out there for anybody who wants to know me. And then it's now whether I'm going to get to know them. Well, we have to create another situation, either a show where we're doing this is a great way. I make a lot of great friends on this because it's a mutual conversation like that, or some other situation where we get to dive into the deeper waters and talk about that stuff, which is where I love to swim anyways. Like swimming in those shallow waters is like, come on, like, what are we doing? It's going to be fun for a while, but I crave the depth.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, man. I have to be able to go there with you, because me too. I'm like, I just don't, gatherings like barbecues and shit like that are real tough for me. I spend a lot of time with the dog at the house, I'm just like, cool, bro, I'll drop in with you. And it's that perception thing, but it's weird to me that other people aren't like can we just talk about what we're all doing here? Like,
Uh-huh.
what we're really doing here? And yeah, it's just weird to me that people don't want to dive headfirst into that
It's
water.
also the drug. It's also the social drug, which is alcohol. Like alcohol can, in certain circumstances, drive depth. It's special when it actually does that. Usually it creates, frivolousness in a certain way and kind of distraction and play. It can be play, but every time you gather, the bottles of wine open up, and obviously you don't partake. So that makes it even more. And I partake less and less. Sometimes if it's one of those situations where it's like, man, this is either going to suck or I'm going to drink.
Yep.
I'll be like, hangover, shitty time right now. I don't know.
Shitty time now, shitty time later.
Yeah, exactly. Cost benefit analysis. Fuck it. Where's the sake? I'll make a Manhattan or, some tequila or whatever. And so it's interesting. It's like I don't particularly like that drug usually, alcohol.
Yeah.
But occasionally it's just, if you want to be in accord with people, like you really need to get there or you're going to be uncomfortable, but that's a terrible reason to drink, right?
Yeah.
But it's still like, it's a very interesting predicament that we find ourselves in because all of our social the typical normal social organization
100%.
is around drinking.
Yeah. And being an artist, that's like that's the peace offering.
Right.
Oh, you've been driving all day. Welcome to our venue. Here's some alcohol to make your stay better. Which is great for the boys. They like it. But for me too, it's always funny too, the kind of like cultural conditioning. I've been at like those barbecue situations or whatever and be like, all right, who's someone who'll smoke some weed with me?
Yeah.
And then like a mom will walk around the corner and see a smoke. She's like, there's kids around here. I'm like, yeah, by all means, and watch their dad fall down drunk. But God forbid they come around the corner and smell something funny. Like, what the fuck, man? Yeah. So it's cool to see the tides, turning in that regard. But yeah, it's such a weird thing, especially with kids. I'm always trying to figure out like, where's the level of how open do I want to be with that and how much context can I give? If my kids don't drink and, decide to be little psychonauts that have proficient, effective lives, then I'm all on that team. But
it's the modulation of consciousness is like, it's a very attractive thing. It's not necessary. And this is not me recommending, but having little things that can shift your state to try and get you in accord. This actually, I have one right here. So I started, and I have no affiliation with this company or anything, and I'm not promoting it for anybody else but me. But it's this little tonic blend of kava and kratom. And I don't know if you're familiar with kava.
Yeah,
and kratom.
both. Yeah.
And they blend it up in this kind of combination. It's called Feel Free. And I've started doing that instead of drinking. So we had like a drinking, event last night, which was cool. It was like it was nice, but it would have been more uncomfortable if I didn't have some consciousness modulating thing.
Yep.
Also, I was, a little tired, been podcasting, working out, doing all this stuff all week. But yeah, so I just swigged, trusted my intuition, swigged like most of the little tonic bottle. It's like a 2-ounce bottle of this thing. And I was great. Didn't have a desire to have a drink.
Kava's magic in that regard, man.
It really is. And so like that to me, this is a great tool because now I have another option because toughing it out and just like I can get my mind in whatever state is necessary, that I'm not always able or desiring to do that. So having some tool that's going to not leave me hungover, I wanted to make sure I was sharp. So I didn't want to have a drink. I didn't have a sip of alcohol and I had a great time with everybody last night until I got my ass kicked in pool, but it didn't help with that. It didn't help with that at all.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like I'll look back at that night and be like, it was a fantastic night, even though everybody was getting drunk and I had a little bit of jealousy of the deliciousness of the drinks they were having, but nonetheless, that choice was the right choice for me. And it allowed me to kind of get in accord with them. So having these tools, I think is really helpful to figure out like, okay, these are my boundaries of I'm not into this. But for you, maybe it's weed. What that doesn't work for me. That kind of puts me on its own journey,
Yeah, and I haven't been smoking. It was funny, man. I've reached the epitome of stonerdom. I just realized like last week, my wife was like, "When was the last time you smoked?" I was like, "I don't know." And then I realized that I haven't smoked in like 3 months. I've just been like cruising.
That's great.
Yeah, man, and it feels really good. For the first time in a long time, I just am like zoned in, and I have a deep love and respect for cannabis, and I think it's a really helpful tool. But what I'm starting to realize, especially after taking this break from it, when I use it now, I almost feel a little, like you said, I'm like, okay, no, this has to be a thing where I'm like curating an experience. Cause previously I'd be like, yeah, man, I'm about to fucking hit my hash pin 4 times and go lift weights, and now I'm like, So I think kava is something that I would love to see explode a little more. A couple fighters, Shane Fichter and Kobe Jeffers, that were pro MMA fighters out of the Grindhouse. They both just opened a kava bar in Billings, Montana.
Nice.
And it's so cool, man, because I remember being in Hawaii and kava bars are everywhere. And it's, when you drink kava, there is this almost like alcohol effect. There's this kind of loose, lovey, inhibitions are gone a little bit, but the decision-making is still there, and the aggression doesn't ever come in.
Yeah.
So you make a kava bar and you bring a bunch of people together. There's a bar. Everyone can drink this beverage that makes them feel really at home and loose and good and comfy. No one's getting a hangover. No one's getting in fights. No one's getting DUIs. It's just crazy to me that it hasn't taken off everywhere. Like that's just not a huge thing.
I agree. Yeah, that's, I think, where the world is going, is like these more tonic and elixir type of situations with herbs like kratom and with herbs like kava and with these different things that are giving people options, because we're always going to desire to get fucked up in some way.
Like you said, how did you say
what?
Modulate consciousness?
Yeah, modulating consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think too that there's, I know for a lot of people when they're first getting sober from alcohol, people that have drinking problems, there's this, well, who am I without a drink in my hand? Like I've always had a drink in my hand, and where the fuck am I going to go to socialize? There's this fear of like, it's scary being like, okay, can I go to a bar with a bunch of friends and not drink? A lot of people can't handle the temptation. Or if you're like me, you look around at people getting drunk and you're like, man, fuck this. Like, this isn't fun. If it's like close friends and shit like that, fine. But like out in public, I'm just real, and part of it's PTSD, but I'm real hyper aware of situations. I can like feel aggression rising over here. I can tell this dude's maybe thinking about fighting. I'm too sensitive. But the kava thing is so cool for people in that position that want to socialize, that want to sit at a bar. It's like, hey man, here's a place for you to go. And you're probably going to meet cool people because you're not going to, meet many assholes at a kava bar.
Yeah. The whole dynamic is weird. Like there was a drunk pickup artist that came to our dinner table, and I was watching him, and I know that, I can track that. I'm obviously sober, super tapped in, and like looking around at the situation. He looked at one of my wife's friends, who's beautiful. She was at the table, named Soraya, and she was at the table and caught her eye, saw that she wasn't with anybody. And then I watched him circle back, and like none of us were, like a shark, and none of us were interested. He found the drunkest guy at the table, and then knew that was his way in, right? Classic like pickup artist style. So found the drunkest guy at the table.
Weird role to play.
Yeah, goes in and starts just working his game, like slightly getting in, throwing out some negs, trying to be self-deprecating, funny, trying to move, eventually winding his way back to Soraya to get her, to get her IG. And I'm just looking at it, just like ignoring him, like, come on, bro, like leave. And would everybody please stop talking to him? This will go away. This horror will end if we just all stop, And eventually he's like, asks for numbers. He's like, no, but you can follow me on Instagram. And he's like, all right, I'll make sure to look at all your pictures and blah, blah, blah.
That's not creepy at all, Dave.
I was like, It was like, fucking guy, come on,
Yeah, what's funny, man, is that people in that state don't know they're being observed. Mm-hmm. You're looking at him through a crystal clear lens of understanding, the psyche. And it's so funny where, in his mind, he was like, I'm a fucking Johnny Depp character in the movie now. He doesn't know you're sitting at the table like, motherfucker, you circled 3 times and now you're sitting, and like just fully breaking apart his game. In his head, he's just like crushing it. And to me, that's what's so unattractive about alcohol. I don't really like to be around it, is because you see people that are like living out this fucking scene in their head. And it's like, if only you could see it from behind the camera, bro, you look like shit right now. It's not going as smoothly as you think it is.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. What a funny thing to observe.
Uh-huh. One of the things that I think you've mentioned it, referenced it a bunch of times, but it's so important, I think, for people to have a place to get out the physical elements of combat, contact, aggression in a certain way. And I don't think it's just for men. I think it's actually all people need it.
Yep.
And I think men typically lean towards outlets where they have it, but it's not that men need it more. I think it's actually everybody needs it, because otherwise all of these, like, to feel human, there's nothing that puts you in your body like that. And it doesn't have to be jujitsu, but jujitsu is a beautiful way, because the act of actually tapping, the act of surrender and knowing your own limitations, that's important. But I get it on the basketball court. I've rolled as well, but I get it on the basketball court playing really good people where they shake me and then go score on me and talk a little shit. And I'm like, okay, now try that again, motherfucker. Let's go, like, ball up. Like, it's my turn now, and you go back and forth and you're hitting each other and you're exhausted at the end. And then we jump in a cold plunge together and laugh about all the shit we talked, even if we got heated.
Yeah.
That's like so important to my psyche. And I think it's important to everybody's psyche, and women out there listening too. Like, this is the way that I watch our cats play. We just got 2 new Savannah cats. I watch them play. They'll just look at each other for a little while and then they'll just run at each other and just tussle. And one will go into cat jujitsu with all paws up and be like waiting, and they'll just roll around. And then they're back like licking each other and just playing around. Like the human craves that. Both sexes craves the wrestling, the playing. Look at any animal. There's always that tussle,
a tug of war with dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Like we need
controlled
that.
battle,
controlled battle that is play.
Yep.
Like the play battle. Like that's the thing that all humans really crave. And I just encourage everybody out there to find that in whatever form possible, even if it doesn't really matter what it is, but particularly if it involves some kind of contact. Some way that you're like kind of pushing up against somebody, and it can like really feel them and play in that way. Whatever rule set you want to apply, great. But I just can't overstate how important that is to the psyche.
Yeah, for me, this sentence is going to sound real fucking weird, but I found a lot of value in getting punched in the face, and it happens, and you realize it's not that bad. And that play aspect, when I think of sparring, that's what I think of. We're friends. You and me are friends. And, when we're sparring, we're going 50% probably at the beginning. And then by like round 4 or 5, we maybe hit 75, 80. We're trying to hurt the other person. But we have our tricks, just like basketball. I'm going to try my tricks on you. You're going to try your tricks on me. And we get each other, and it's so crazy, not just the benefits for your psyche of doing hard things, getting exercise and stuff like that the bonding that happens between 2 people when you go, I'm going to give you my best today in this combat setting, and my goal is that it's going to make you better. And you're doing the same for me. So we're going to collide today, but we're colliding with the goal here is that we're both going to get better, and we're assisting each other in getting better. Dude, I just have so many friends from different walks of life, people that I never thought I'd be friends with. Dude, if you went back and told fucking 19-year-old Drew he'd be friends with cops, no way, dude. And there's cops that I train with that I love, which has given me, and then it opens this door of like, okay, well, shit, let me get a cop's perspective on all of this crazy shit involving cops.
Yeah.
Let me get a contractor's perspective on like the housing boom in Montana. So it
humanizes everybody rather
than the label.
Everybody. They're just a person.
Yeah.
We're back to, and what is humanizing? Back to the human animal.
Yep.
Like, let's get back to the human animal. We're all savages on the inside. Whatever you pretend, whatever your persona is that you think you're all good and you're all spiritual, whatever. No, you're a fucking savage that's put on a costume.
Dude.
Like recognize
Thank you for saying that, man. I believe that so much.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's so important to tap into that. And like, for me, when I really felt just like thrusted into personal growth was when I just gave into that of like, no, man, I am this. This is like, I'm fucking Irish, man. This shit is deep in my DNA, and I'm not going to ignore it anymore. I'm going to healthily feed it. Yeah, I think that's so real. And I think people just our culture has just contextualized violence in a really weird way. And I'm really grateful for the leaps and bounds that MMA has made. Because it used to be, right, this cage fighting. This is human cockfighting. We're putting 2 people in it. And now the the sport's grown so much that it's like, no, man, these are high performing athletes that are playing their game at the highest level.
Yep.
And they're developing a game plan against somebody else's game plan. And I just love seeing the way it is, and that these guys are starting to get the respect that they deserve as the most optimized performing athletes on the planet.
Yeah.
Because like, there's nothing more pure than that. No disrespect to basketball, baseball, or anything, but like, there's no fucking ball here, man.
We've stripped the rules down to the barest possible, but still somewhat civil way that it can be, like where there's not eyeballs.
I'm not going to bite
out.
you, poke your eyes, hit your dick, but we're both going to try to kill each other. This man's here to make sure no one dies. You know, like that's about as good as it gets. You know, it's real pure. And the thing that I love so much about combat sports, there's just no bullshit. It's so authentic. Like the mat doesn't fucking lie. You can think you're the shit. I can think that my leg lock game is like through the fucking roof because I ran through these 4 guys, and then I roll with someone else where I'm like, fuck, I don't know shit. It's this repetitive mixed with this crumbling, humbling, and then you ride the wave of in between, and I'm just a student. There's no end goal here, bro. You're good. But it's just so honest and pure. And like, to me, that is the magic of the fight. Is it's like, no, man, like we see it in the UFC all the time. You guys can talk all of that shit, but we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out. You know? And there's no, I mean, and very rarely are you like, oh man, that knockout was bullshit, or like, well, I don't know, dude. You got in there with a dude and he beat you in a fight, and like that's the end of it. So it's just really pure. And like you were saying with jiu-jitsu, that tap, it's so cool to be able to engage 100% in this way of like, yeah, well, if you're about to break my shit, I'll tap, or if I'm about to fall asleep, I'll tap, and then we go right back at it. We'll go again.
Yeah.
And the
slap, fist bump, repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just see, man, we've seen people come in just since I've been there, man. Will started a second gym in Red Lodge. I started helping teach. This dude comes in, Ryan, has a beer gut, still smoking cigarettes, but he had quit drinking. And within 3 months, he's got a fucking 8-pack. He comes to every class. He comes to kid class just so he can drill. And we just see it. I watch people's lives change, or people come in that are so awkwardly social, they don't make eye contact. And then a couple years go by and they're like, dude, I got promoted at my job. I felt like I deserved the job. I went in and told my boss, hey, I've been doing this, this, and this. I think I deserve this promotion. And he gave it to me. And it's like, yeah, dude, you wouldn't have got that playing cricket.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yep. There's like a self-confidence that we see build, and magic happens, you know? We just get to see this magic happen. So it's like, I'm always in some sort of physical state of disarray. I have a torn PFL right now, and I have 2 damaged discs in my neck. But I just look at it as what I'm getting from it is worth paying in. So I pay with a little bit of my body, but my spirit is just constantly being injected with goodness.
Yeah. One thing that I think is missing from like its proper place in the pantheon of these things is combat sports using weapons. So I got into kendo a few years ago, and it's kind of like a modified version of kendo. I didn't want to go into the necessarily super traditional aspects. Some traditional aspects, I have like a little bowing ceremony at the beginning and a little centering, but we wear lacrosse gear because first of all, the kendo, I didn't find sizes that fit me and my giant friends like Kyle and people, So like, I just like lacrosse helmet, lacrosse gloves, lacrosse elbow pads, and a cup. And like, it's bamboo shinai. It's these bamboo swords, but you go and we go to 10 points. Sometimes it's a tie because you both whack each other. But it's fucking intense. It feels like battle. And when you get that bamboo rattling off the top of your helmet, it doesn't hurt. You're not getting any brain concussion, but it's loud and you feel embarrassed and you feel like, wow, I just died.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's a thing in the back of your head that's like,
me.
I would have died.
And you get some of those shots to the body or other places, and it's like, ooh, that stung. Like this has a consequence. But it brings up that element of like, this is a dance, this is a fight, this is this way that we're trying to trick each other. And then you have like, I have my special trick moves, like one where a lot of the ones are like fast taps to the top of the head. So I'll hit somebody with that. and then I'll come really aggressive, like, and yell, and like I'm going for that, and then dive under and try and slash the belly. And if I can get that move, it's like a
question mark
finishing.
kick.
Yeah, exactly. It's the question mark kick. So I'll have these moves that I'm always thinking, how do I set this up? How do I land this thing? And it's been super fun. I don't do it as often as I would like, but every time I do, it's great. And I've talked to other people who've done. There's like broadsword fighting, and I'm not talking about.
I saw something where there's like dudes in like medieval gear.
Yeah, that one seems fucking violent and deadly.
Very violent.
From like Russia, where they're actually like, it's like MMA night combat.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about that, but I'm talking about like the sporting element of, you can do it with all kinds of things. You can do like a spear versus broadsword, and they have these like ways that are really nice, like foam gear.
Dude, so are you talking like early days of the UFC, but like have a nunchuck guy versus a kendo guy?
Totally.
Fuck
but like
yeah,
soft,
bro.
but like soft weapons,
Yeah,
and like in ways that you score, but you're going, so
I feel like you know the right people to get this off the ground.
Man,
dude.
it's just like doing that is super engaging. And
Totally.
for someone who doesn't, because jujitsu is phenomenal that you can go full out, but like I have some stuff in my upper back that always gets aggravated.
Yep.
It's sometimes worth it to roll, but like I know, like, all right, this is going to be, I haven't been able to quite solve that. Maybe some, PRP or something will ultimately sort it out. But it is great because you can go full out. You're not really going to get hurt. You're just going to aggravate like the injuries you talked about. Sparring, I had to let go just because of the concussive trauma. I was like, I've done that too many times, too many concussions. Paul Buentello, actually, I sparred against that dude, the old headhunter, and he knocked me into a place where I didn't understand where my car was parked, and I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, that's scary.
I'm fucking, this is not my job. Like, I'm not, but I love it. I love that game. So I'll do like shoulder sparring, or I'll do some like other ways that will kind of get into it. But with these weapons in the right way, I just feel like there's a whole flourishing market that exists, but people don't know about it. And I think a lot of people, especially like if you've grown up playing video games and stuff, but you want to get active and you want to do that, like pick up your broadsword. Actually, my publisher, her son is like deep into it and is constantly training and sparring. And I showed him some mace training techniques to help his game. And he's like, and he's going again. And it's like, it's a rad underworld of combat that like is actually going to not hurt the body in any way, but still give you that feeling of like, I just went to war with this dude.
Yeah.
Or this girl.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, it's so funny. Like you're talking about getting hit in the helmet with the sword where you're like, well, I would have just died.
Yeah. That would have been the end.
That would have been the end of the fight.
And that's humbling.
Yeah, it is. And that's what's so crazy about jiu-jitsu is that, we're playing this game, but sometimes it just hits me like, but if you didn't let go, I would have died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what would have happened.
Yeah.
And it's like that, to me, that's like such a cool thing to just know, like, I never have any intention of ever getting in a street fight for any reason. But it's nice to have in the back pocket of just like, okay, cool. I could defend my boundaries to the utmost. And I always give this thing, right? So on a scale of human interaction, 1, we've made eye contact, 10, we're fighting each other to the death. I spend a lot of time at like 6 to 8. So it's like 1 through 5 is easy as fuck, and it's funny. And what's weird too, dude, is I feel like the more I train, the more empathy I have for people. Like, so I had this really funny day where I had to get my cell phone fixed, and I had rolled for an hour. I did some Muay Thai, and then I sparred for an hour. And I left, and it was one of those days, no aches, no pains. I felt loose. I was just like, fuck, I wish I felt like this all the time. So my phone's getting fixed. So I popped to this bar next door to get a burger. And there's like a big TV and a guy sitting in front of the TV. And I'm looking at the TV watching this baseball game. And the guy goes, you got a fucking staring problem? I was like, well, that isn't aggressive. Hey, man, do we know each other? I was like, fuck, dude, you went right to a 4. And I like look at him, and he's very out of shape. And he just had this look on his face of, it was just like, you were just not a happy man.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like in my head, like, bro, I'm loose right now. Like you would literally just be round 7 today. And then I like broke it down. And I was just like, this voice just came in of like, yeah, man, it's not you. It's his wife, or it's his kids, or it's this. And I just was like, no, man, I was looking at the TV behind you. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah. And it's like, let that man think that he punked the tattooed kid at the bar.
Yeah, totally.
It was like, bro, Could have killed you with my hands, but I'm just gonna spin around and not watch the baseball game, I guess. And me personally, I've had so many like just huge ego breakthroughs in the gym that I think that empathy comes from being like, oh yeah, no, dude, I'm professionally get my soul crushed all of the time. I seek it out.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, you just never had your soul crushed. So you just.
And probably some aspect of him is craving that. Like some part of his, his guiding light is like, man, you really need to get your soul crushed here. Like you need a humbling moment, but it wouldn't really work because it's not consistent enough and it's not voluntary enough. But he's craving some boundary. Yeah. He's craving some boundary to his experience, some place where he can bump up against and be like, okay, this is reality again. Because it's just story after story, weaving these fictions in his mind about who he is and what people are doing to him and how the world is against him and all of these fictions, and just wanting to slam into some wall. I've seen it with a lot of the fighters that I've hung out with, like killers. And I'll watch people out of the blue, like come at them. And I'm like,
could you imagine?
Like, what? All right, and not even knowing who they are, not being like, hey, so-and-so, but just like randomly picking a fight. I saw it with Luke Rockhold. I saw it with Cowboy. I've seen it with and I'm like,
how the fuck, man?
I'm like, really, guys? Like, do you not know? And they always just kind of smile and just kind of like,
man. Well, so the thing that's so wild about that is, so I went to a gym called Jimmo in North Carolina, and I was invited to come train there. He's like, yeah, we start at 9, and they just go. It's like 9 to 10 jiu-jitsu, 10 to 11 wrestling, 11 to 12 Muay Thai. 12, it's just this whole day. And I was just like, well, no one else is leaving, so I guess I'll stay. And I sparred a guy that at the time was fighting for LFA, and he threw a leg kick sparring, and I could tell that he didn't throw it with ill intent. And I was just like, whoa, that fucking sucked, And it's like these people just have no idea, where it's like, it's that the lack of contextualization of violence, where it's like, dude, if you're an above average person and Cowboy kicks you in the head, that is a fucking problem. You know what I mean? It's like if Luke Rockhold hits you with any part of his body, that could change the trajectory of your life forever.
Yeah, totally.
And it's so scary. And again, alcohol always plays a big part in that, but it's like not enough people have that. I always use this. You're a basketball player, so you'll appreciate this example. So there's a guy that I think of, shout out Tony Mike. He's an RV salesman. He dresses like the most suburban dad you'd ever see, not an immaculate build. He's a savage brown belt. Great striker, dangerous human. Doesn't have cauliflower ear, doesn't have a crooked nose. There's like no indicating factors that this man is dangerous. And there's a lot of people walking around. If we use we'll remove fighting with basketball. So I'll play the dickhead. I've never played basketball. No, I played basketball once when I was in college and we were drunk. And I think I did okay. So I'm pretty sure, dude, anyone that I meet, I could beat in one-on-one in basketball.
Yeah, totally.
How fucking stupid does that sound?
Totally.
Where it's like, even if you run into an RV salesman that's played basketball 4 times a week for the last 11 years, he's gonna fucking school you.
Yeah.
It's like if you replace fight, I don't know what it is about fighting that makes people just go like, I don't know, bro, I just fucking see red, dude, and I'm just good at it. And like, I don't know, dude, if I'm pissed, dude, I can fucking play hockey. You know what I mean? Like if you replace it with any other sport, it sounds so fucking dumb. It's like, no, dude, I just get super mad and I can just sink threes. It's fucking crazy. Like it's wild. But it's like, it's so weird that it's not contextualized that way. Of just like,
well, it's also this distance from human instinct.
Yeah.
Like not being able to read that. Like the people who've tried to start fights with me it's the most ridiculous person ever.
Yeah.
Like 5'5", 140, and they're like in my face, like I will, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you not have any instincts here?
Yeah.
Like what is the thing? But like other people who fought a little bit, there's this kind of like thing, like when you have your instincts in tow, like when you've actually done it and you've actually gotten your ass kicked and kicked a few asses and like in obviously on the mats and sometimes in street fights if people are doing that a lot, I'm sure you get some experience that way. but there's like a sense, there's an animal sense. There's an animal sense of like, yeah, I'm not sure about this, but it would not be fun for either of us. So
Yeah.
good for you. Like, hey man, like have a good time.
What's crazy too is that it's like, dude, especially in a street fight, the amount of variables, it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I had a lot of friends get in a lot of trouble growing up for pretty like deservable things. We had a friend that we grew up with, was getting into it with a guy in a bar. It trickles outside and the dude spit on him. He punched the guy. The dude fell down, hit his head, and he got a very serious charge, you know, did time in prison for it. And it's like, it shouldn't have gone that way.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Typically a guy spits in your face, you hit him and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But like it can go sideways so quick. You got in a street fight one time, right?
Yeah, man. That was
I want to
crazy.
hear this story because you can give me a short or long
I'll
as
tell
version
you
as
the-
you want.
I'll tell you the quick version. So coming out of a club right downtown on Lavaca Street, the club was called Pangea at the time, and rolling out, and I was with all the homies, like a couple pro fighters, like Roger Huerta was my homie, and like another guy, Nick Gonzalez, who's fought in Strike Force, like another big guy, heavyweight, Brian Jimerson, never fought professionally, but like a bunch of fighters and a bunch of good street fighters. And like that was kind of my crew then. It was like Roger's crew, and I was training heavily then. And I was actually training to have my first amateur fight. I was like, I wanted to do it partly because Roger was my homie, and it was just what we were doing all the time. We had a little gym called El Garage, which was in my house, and it was just this mats through every part of it and just a garage.
Yeah.
But we would roll with the the slide down, the garage door down, and it would get so steamy in there. Sweat would go to the ceiling and then drop down. It was disgusting.
Yeah,
like,
real gross when that
it
happens.
was like
Yeah.
disgusting. But El Garage, we got some work in. So anyways, I had a Dodge Challenger at the time, and it was parked outside of the club with the valet. And everybody went to the separate little parking lot that was near. And I was like, all right, I'll see y'all back at the house. It was going to be after party at my house in East 2nd Street. Used to throw a lot of after parties there. So like go to the car, and it was surrounded by 4 guys. And it was like 4 pretty big guys.
Just
And
like hanging out on your car.
hanging out around my car. And this was early. I had a Challenger early. So it was still like a really cool car. Like now Challengers are everywhere, but then it was like a cool car. And this one dude is like leaning up against my car, and he's eating a pizza, and he's throwing the toppings of the pizza on top of my car. And I'm with my fiance, and I'm just going to drive her home, you know? So I took it pretty easy. I wasn't drinking that much. And so I was like, all right, it's a close drive. I feel good. I feel sober enough. You know, I'm going to just drive home real quick, and I'll meet everybody back at the house. Anyways, so she goes and sees him like throwing the pizza on top of my car. And she says like, hey, like this is our car. What are you doing? And I was like, kind of like, it just kind of blurted out, and her name's Caitlin. So Caitlin was like, what are you doing? And he looks at her and he goes, I'll put my meat wherever I want, bitch. And I was like, holy shit, this got real quick. And then she like goes up in him and like gets in his face. And I'm watching this, and it's happening so fucking fast. I'm like, holy shit. And there's like 3 other dudes. He goes, and then gets up in his face, and he's like, don't disrespect me and my boyfriend. And he takes her and he slams her head into the side of the car. And like that moment, I don't even know, she was on the other side of the car. I don't even know how I got from one side to the other, but it was like the most like blind superhero rage of all. So I fly around the car, and I hit that dude with everything I had. All I saw was the side of his jaw, and I just hit him with everything. And I hit him so clean in the jaw that I had my knuckle didn't hurt
Smooth,
at
baby.
all from that. It was just butter. Like his jaw moved with my fist, and he was out. But then we had 3 people. The fight was on. So Caitlin, which I wouldn't have advised, but it really probably saved us. She jumped on the back of one of them, being like feisty and like having him back. And the guy was actually sensible enough, that other guy, that he didn't like slam her, and like he was just kind of like dealing with her. And then I was fighting 2 guys at the same time. And it was like a weird thing. And I think because I got clipped in the side of the head by one of them, and also the adrenaline. I don't have a lot of memories, but I remember a few things. One thing was one of the guys threw like a round kick, And I was like, that was some weak ass shit. And I wasn't even thinking about kicking. So I kicked him back and I fucking lit in him, just felt it hit the squishy parts of his of his body. And then we were fighting. And then there's this another guy. And then I did get clipped. And so a lot of it I don't remember. Just I remember the fight and the scuffle. And I remember I was standing in the street. And I was like, and that's when my consciousness kind of came to. And Caitlin was there. And I was like, where did they go? Where the fuck did they go? Because I didn't remember like what happened. I never went down, and we were just trading. And the valley's like they ran that way, and I was like, holy shit, that got real in like a second. Like it got real in a second. And Caitlin's face was a little bloody. My face was a little bloody. I got like hit in the temple, so I got concussed a little bit, and then ended up gathering myself, going home, and then. I was so mad that like my boys weren't there because I wanted everybody who did that. I wanted them all to be dead.
Yeah,
like I wanted them to be laid out in a neat row, and for me to look at them, not actually dead, but like laid out in a row, being like, "Don't you ever do that to me or anyone ever again." And I get back like, "What the fuck happened? We just left you," and I was like. Wow,
good time for you to leave me.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, damn, and I was so mad. I was actually mad at myself. And this actually came up in ceremony a while ago, is that I was doing it was actually a DMT ceremony, and I felt some real pressure on that place where I got hit. And my wife's, my wife now, Violana, she's a medicine woman, and I had her, I was like, can you touch this area here? I feel like a lot of tension. It was the place where I got clipped in the side of the head, which probably made me lose my memory, and I'm sure kind of disoriented my fighting ability. And she goes in and I started crying, and as she was working on it, and I was crying, and what I realized is I was still holding judgment against myself because I didn't act like a superhero like Jean-Claude Van Damme.
You slept the dude that threw your girl.
I did sleep that guy, and so it was unrealistic. But I wanted so bad, and I had this idea from watching all these movies that I should have laid them all out.
Yeah.
Like they should have not just been that guy, which they
the
helped up
35-second fight scene from a Van Damme movie where you're like...
Yeah. And I was literally holding judgment that I wasn't enough of a man, that I didn't train hard enough, that I didn't have the skills to actually show up in that way, which is crazy because I did actually, we were okay. We finished the fight standing, and the person who threw, my fiance into the side of the car, like he got slept. So like all in all, it was a pretty good showing. We made it out
W.
It was a W. But my own self-judge was so strong that I didn't forgive myself until that moment where I was like, wow, man, you can really let that go. Like you did your best, and it actually turned out all right. And like you said, it was a W.
Yeah.
But an interesting, crazy thing, and I ended up not taking, partly because I got mildly concussed, didn't end up taking the fight that I was going to take, the amateur fight. And I felt like it got me out of my system. Like I needed to prove to myself that if some shit went down, I could handle myself. And I did that, even though I judged myself for not being,
well, what's interesting, dude, is that it's like training becomes fun. It just becomes a part of our life and what we're doing. And like I said, sometimes we forget what we're doing. Like, oh, we're in here fucking simulating murder on each other.
Yeah.
And I just always think of like, I'm the dude that like watching like a psychological thriller when like the dude's wife's getting fucked with or something. I'll be like, babe, I can't. I gotta fucking go, man. Just let me know when this scene's over and I'll be back.
I get uncomfortable and shit like that.
Yeah,
too.
like I can't. Sometimes I have to leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, dude, if somebody was hurting you,
I know,
I would fucking eat them.
Do you have any situation where your wife tells you stories about things that happened in her past, like where people did fucked up things in their past? That thing, the fucked up thing is like, I can't separate someone hurting my partner in the past from the present. Like let's open
Facebook. Let's find this motherfucker.
I'll still get hot. I'll still get hot, even though it's not about what I'm going to do. It still feels like it's present because I love my wife not only as she is now, but I love her for the entirety of her life, even though I didn't even know her.
100%.
So if someone was picking on her when she was 16 or someone was treating her shitty when she was 24 or whatever, I'm still like, I still get like that protective energy of like that fire, like I will fucking destroy you. That still comes up.
Well, bro, so when we were talking about the Nipsey ROM balance, okay, so I had JP Sears on my podcast, phenomenally sweet human being, has some controversial comedy. And dude, people were like, some of our fans were full on like, cancel Satsang. He is, dude, it got out of hand and super, super fast. And I'd never dealt with that before. So I was internalizing a lot of it. And, it probably didn't help that I was like, the following day was like, I just shouldn't have been reading all of it is step one. I shouldn't have been reading all of these comments. But some of the most just like beta looking dudes ever were just like, fuck that guy. He's an asshole. I never forget a face. And he's like, fuck that guy. I've met him. He's an asshole, yada, yada. And I'm like looking at their Facebook profiles. I'm like, motherfucker, I've never met you before, but we could meet. And then I'm like at the gym lifting, like listening to 50 Cent. And I'm like texting my manager, like, I think I'm gonna find this motherfucker. He lives in Minneapolis. Carl lives in Minneapolis. Carl said he knows where he works. I think I got to roll through, and just be like, Drew's a bitch. I've met Drew before. That you, motherfucker? And I just was like struggling with this whole thing. And it took like 3-4 days to me to come down from this thing of like, who gives a fuck what these people are saying about me? I don't know these people. But I think you and I are similar in that regard where we can be like running through things and like, it brings up these emotions and I'm like, no, man, I'm riding this motherfucker. It's like, no, I'll get off when I'm good and ready. And it's so crazy, man. And it was when I was going through it, dude, I was like, I'm fucking deleting social media. And then I'm like, well, I can't. My business thrives on it. Like, fuck, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
A, it was setting healthy boundaries, but B, it was realizing like that I just can't invest stock in people that don't know. Now, you and I, as we're getting closer here, if someone was like, Aubrey was like, I met Drew, he's a dickhead, I'd be like, well, fuck, man, I thought we were cool,
totally.
But it's
that
would break my heart.
Be a reasonable thing to be bummed about.
Yeah, but realizing like these people that it's like, and I'm good at, I think it's because I'm such a Jordan Peterson fan, I can trace pathology pretty well. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, you were in a band that started about the same time as mine and you deliver pizzas now. So that's probably very frustrating. So you look at me and you probably are like, my band's fucking way better than his band and his band's killing it and mine isn't. Fuck that guy. And then this JP thing came up and you didn't even listen to the podcast, but you're like, oh, are we canceling this motherfucker? Okay, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, totally.
But it's so hard not to get caught up in that shit in the moment and ride it all the way out, where it's like, I want to feel all the emotions, but some emotions are better left alone. And like you're saying, now at the back of your mind, you're always wondering like, well, what would happen? It's like, well, you fucking train all the time. So if you fought someone, you're probably going to do good.
Right.
So it's like my professor Will, when I was talking to him about it, he's like, yeah, man, that would prove a lot if a purple belt in jiu-jitsu that's been doing Muay Thai for 4 years went and beat up some dude that delivers pizza for talking shit on the internet. That would be so shocking. And like, you'd really drive your point home. It's like the knowing has to be here, not here.
100%. And that's the more you trust yourself, the less pointy parts of you that you have out, the less you're likely to stick someone with a little over-aggression. Because all of that aggression and anger, a lot of it comes from, because like when the fighters people have come at them, they shrug it off typically more than anybody. Now, there is a point where you poke the dragon enough and you get the fire. Like you poke the bear enough and you're going to get pummeled, and back in the old days with Roger, like there's actually a video of that. It was a different situation, but some dude punched, this big guy punched a girl in the back of the head and it was all on cameras on like TMZ and everything.
Oh, I remember that.
And Roger like steps out. It was outside of the same bar. Outside of the same bar.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Don't go to Pangea, dude.
I know.
Knock it off.
It's crazy. And he goes, you can't do that, man. And he's, height difference of like 8 inches.
I remember that video.
And so there's these moments where they'll just be like, now you get the consequences. Yeah, takes off his shirt and then scramble. All of a sudden there's this dude just, getting mounted and pummeled. And
I couldn't imagine. Well, so you've done jujitsu with someone that's really, really good at jujitsu and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? You know, like I remember when I first started training of just being like, I'm never going to be this good. There's no way. And like, I think of a situation in a street fight where somebody didn't know jujitsu or even just know how good some people can throw a punch. Like you look at a guy like Justin Gaethje, it's not a fucking guy you'd be like, I bet you he's a badass.
Yeah.
But it's like, if that dude hits you, he'd probably breaking something.
Really, regardless of how big you are.
Yes. Yeah. No problem. No problem. It's going to suck. And yeah, man. And it's so, crazy. You know, Tim Kennedy, one of my favorite lines of his, he says, never start a fight with someone that loves to be in a fight.
Yeah.
So it's like, you might get Cowboy to shrug you off 3 times, but once he's on, I have a feeling that he don't turn off.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like,
that's the truth.
It might sound good when you're good and tipsy and like, no, man, today's the day I test myself. And it's like, fuck, dude, wrong number.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, people just don't know until they know. And you know, hopefully I'd like to think that the 2 fellas that he beat outside that bar are like, all right, we got to chill the fuck out. You know, like,
Yeah, that's that boundary. That's where they like realize, oh shit, like I can't do this anymore. And there's people out there that are holding that was like, I think the problem with all the litigation and everything. And I know it's important to keep people who are aggressive and people who are going to just like there's this thing where people just run up and punch people. Like,
yeah, I remember that.
Go to fucking jail.
Yep,
like, go
100%.
to jail, get sued, lose all your money, and spend some time in prison. Like, that's fucked up. But like I think there's I forget what it's called, but there's like some rules about when you just both agree to a street fight, and in some places
mutual combat, Washington.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
there's some
baby.
places where that's legal and accepted. And I think that's important.
Yep.
I think it's important to know that there are bounds. And that, like, if you step across these bounds, you don't have to wait for authorities to come meet out, okay, like telling your teacher, like, okay, this is a problem here. Can you sit us both down and talk about this? And it's like, no, all right, we'll sort this out. You know, like, we'll step outside and sort this out. You agree, I agree. Here we go. And then the cops are like, great, you guys sorted it out. Thanks for that.
Yep.
Both of you go home.
Yep. Dude, there's a hilarious YouTube video that happened in Spokane, Washington on Halloween. So one guy's in a superhero costume, one guy's in a banana costume. And they're like talking shit to each other. It's getting heated. And a cop walks across the street and this guy's like, mutual combat. You want to fight? Mutual combat. And the guy's like, fuck yeah, man, mutual combat. And the cop's like, okay. So thus begins the fight between the superhero and the banana. The banana had some training and put this motherfucker down. And then it's just like, you know, maybe the dude will pick a different costume next year besides a superhero and be like, yeah, maybe I'll go with banana next year.
You just think you can pick on that banana. He's got everything hidden though.
Yeah.
You know, like all he did. It's hard to know when you're looking at a banana and you're a little blitzed.
Yep. And he found out, dude, don't fuck with fruit.
He's like, I'm a plantain, motherfucker.
But it was so cool to see this cop, like, he's like starting to get in the mix, and then he's like, well, all right. You know, these guys want to fight. I guess they'll get a fight. Yeah, I think that's important too, because we always say, like, we have a bar right next to the gym in Red Lodge, and every time I go out the back door, there's like this back patio where people smoke. And dude, like 3 out of 4 times people are like, I told that motherfucker, you know, like telling some like bullshit fight stories. And I always just want to pop over the fence and just be like, if you guys are ever curious, we do that here.
Yeah.
They would never come. But yeah, I think it's important to know boundaries. And I just couldn't imagine the carelessness of going through the world wanting to bump into things and everyone. I try to walk pretty quietly.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
you lose that desire to prove anything. And it's and also just it's good to know your instincts. You know, like Tim Kennedy teaches sheepdog training, and that's just for the awareness in these situations. But a big basic step to prevent maybe not the extreme violent acts that he's talking about preventing, which are important to be aware of in the situational awareness for that. But just basic awareness is just the human instinct of, okay, who is the person here that is really dangerous? And like beyond what you might think, like sense that out. You'd be able to read an environment. I can recall certain other times, sometimes like whatever intoxicants I'm on will put me in a state where I really want to tap into that. It's like I'm smelling around. Like
weed does that to me, man.
Yeah, it's like a weird combination. I don't know exactly what it is. You know, I dabble with different ways to modulate my consciousness, but like I just remember one time I was at a bar and I was really feeling it, and I was picked up my training a lot then too, and I think that kind of brings it up. I was working with Tony Jeffries out of LA, who's a phenomenal boxing coach, and love working with him. And I picked it up and I was just kind of looking around. I was like, I really think I got all these motherfuckers in here. And then I see this one dude and I was like, except that dude. And I don't know why, but I'm confident that he's got me. And I was like, I'm going to talk to him. And I go up to him and was like, hey man, what's up? And he's like, hey man, what's going on? It's like, nothing, man. I was just seeing like, do you do any like fight training or anything? And he looks at me and he doesn't have the ears or anything. He's like, yeah, man. You know, I do. I was like, you're like amateur, pro? He's like, yeah, you know, I'm pro. I got this record or whatever. And I was like, aha. I was like, thank you. You want a drink? I was like, cool, I'll get you a drink. I just wanted to
Can I buy you a drink for confirming that I have spider senses? You know?
Exactly. That was it. And I was honest. He's like, why'd you come up? I was like, I don't know, man. I was just looking around and I was like thinking about if there's anybody here in this bar who could kick my ass. And I saw you and I thought you could be the guy that would do that.
Turns out I was correct.
Turns out I was right. And he's like, that's a very interesting thing to say. And I was so nice about it. You know? He was like, cool, man. I was like, all right, cool. Well, see you later.
Yeah, I'm always in that state. And it's something my wife and I talk about a lot. It's a PTSD thing. But also I just, you know, the environment I grew up in, shit always popped off. Fights always happened. My brother was usually always involved. Or a fight might pop off because my brother wasn't involved in a fight over here and now I'm over here. And they're like, that's that motherfucker's brother. You know? And so there was that, it benefited me to be in that state all of the time. But my wife and I talk of like, she's like, that could be taking years off your life. And I'm like, I don't know, but I ain't turning that one off. Yeah. You know, like when we're out and about, I'm always doing that of like, okay, here's our exits. Mm-hmm. That guy probably has a gun. That guy just looks tough as shit. So I'm in third place. You know?
Like, you know, where suss out the situation. Yeah, for sure. Well, man, I love having these conversations. They're super fun for me because it's just, this is a part of who we are. Like the human being, when we peel it off, you know, we're sexual, savage, wild animals that also have the ability for beautiful, compassionate consciousness and like the deepest connection to soul and spirituality. If you're thinking about, I can only imagine a world full of different alien life forms, a whole universe of different options. Human being is a hell of a ride because we got access to everything. Yeah. We got access to some deep, primal stuff down there and the sensual pleasures through the fucking roof, the food and the consciousness modulators and then also the ability to go straight to God and straight to like these other dimensional realities and with different psychedelic medicine and practices. And man, human being is a dope ride to be on. Like this is special.
Yeah, real special. Glad we get to be humans together, dude.
Yeah, man.
Glad to know you're
100%.
We're on the ride at the same time.
100%. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Well, let's bring this home with a little more music, man.
Oh, all right. I don't know what I'm gonna play.
Yeah, this will be this nice juxtaposition of 45 minutes of shit talking about fights, and then back to some consciousness. This is the human experience.
I wrote a love song about Montana that will be on the next record.
Cool.
I'll play that.
In the land of the mountains where summer sees snow, carries memories to where I don't know. On a rock in a river where time it gets slow. These are the places I'm from that I go. These are the places I'm from that I go. I've been to everywhere half of my life. You tell me your town, I played there a night. It's a true tale, a story, though glory it lacks. I've been there before and have plans to go back. Places we talk through, though mostly by phone. I know when I go, I don't go it alone. I know under the mountains where summer sees snow. The wind carries memories to where I don't know. On a rock in a river where time it gets slow. These are the places I'm from that I go. These are the places I'm from that I go. It's not all the same, though often they say. There's places we love and the ones that we stay. Plotter inside of my bones, and if it's last best, then it's best left alone. To the woman who knows me and holds me post-war, seen me stand on a mountain and cry on a floor. To the things that we have and we have yet to hold. These are the places I'm from that I go. These are the places I'm from that I go. These are the places I'm from that I go.
I love that song because I really like country music, actually.
Oh, you love the new record then, man.
And I love that had that kind of country. It has this kind of interesting, soulful country spiritual vibe that's like, it's really good for my nervous system in a way, you know?
I'll send you a link so you can hear the new record.
Hell yeah, man.
Because that has like fiddle and it's,
hell yeah, I love that,
hitter.
dude.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's funny to me that people will talk shit about country music, and in some ways I understand some of their criticisms, but like just get into the vibe, like get into the simplicity, and there's oftentimes an appreciation, and even if it's grief or even if it's something, it's behind every grief is love, like the love for the girl, or the love for the thing that they used to pass, even if it's the love for the glory, like there's love behind the grief, but oftentimes it's just appreciation for the simplicity of things, and that's beautiful. It like puts me in a nice state.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what that song did. I was like, man,
good.
It just feels good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm really pumped on all the new stuff. It's the most honest body of work that I think I've ever made. Just another timestamp, you know, it's where I'm at right now, and I feel really, really good about it. And I feel more myself than I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I feel more secure, more safe, more just certain. I just am who I am right now, and it feels really, really good. And I've never really had that. I'm not looking super far forward. I'm just fucking here for it, man. It feels really good.
Let's go. Okay. Beautiful, brother. Do you have any tour dates? I don't know when this podcast is going to release, but anything kind of coming up in the future, obviously where to find your albums and all that.
Yeah, so we're on
Podcast.
Spotify or any of the shit, anywhere you get music. You can check out the Satsang Podcast, SATSANG. Always have an I just had CT Fletcher on, so that one's about to drop. That was a trip. And then the new record comes out June 4th. So yeah, just Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, wherever you get your music. Check it out, save it, listen to it, share it with your friends.
Cool. Can't wait to see the show tonight, brother.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Peace. Thanks for checking out this video. For more like it, please subscribe to my channel. And of course, the Aubrey Marcus Podcast with new episodes every single week. And follow me on Instagram @Aubrey Marcus. Thank you so much.